what is ordination? Why does it matter? And today I'm going to share my story of just getting ordained. I'm going to share with you kind of some miraculous things that God did throughout the process, how everything just kind of aligned. I'm going to share with you some pictures of that moment and just kind of let you jump in to what that experience was like for me. What's up, everybody? It's your pastor friend, David Narvaez, and this channel exists to help you build your life on Jesus in spirit and in truth. And one of the most exciting days happened for me today as I'm recording this video. August 18th actually is the day I'm recording this, the day of. I'm a little bit tired, but I just wanted to kind of talk about what was on my mind considering all this just happened. But long story short, I've been serving in ministry for the past 4 years, and ordination was inevitable. It was going to happen at some point wherever God was leading, and everything wound up it being today, August 18th. But I kind of want to talk about what is ordination. What does it mean? Where do we get it from? Just so you can kind of understand even the context behind it. And so ordination is a confirmation through God's church regarding God's calling in a person's life for pastoral authority or for sending for a specific purpose. And so the apostles and the congregants, this is back in the book of Acts, they knew whom the Spirit had chosen, and they were responded by placing these men in leadership. So it was more along the lines of not that we are giving someone a calling, but God has already called them. We've seen the fruit of that, and this is an affirmation among church leadership saying, yes, we affirm God's call in your life. And so how the confirmation or the ordination council works, typically you have a council beforehand, then you have the actual ordaining service. And for me, it was about 3 hours long on the day before, from 11 a.m. till about 2 p.m. And basically, I was able to select 3 men on that council. My ordaining church selected 3 men, the senior pastor as well as 2 governing elders. And they were the ones that basically were a part of the ordination council. And the men that I chose were, let's just say they were the worst and best people to choose for my council. I had my father who was there, who was an ordained pastor. He doesn't have a doctorate, but he knows the word front and back. He has a master's degree. And then Dr. David Nelson, he's the president of Crossing Cultures International. That's the ministry that I serve at. And then Dr. Douglas Lay, he runs Serving Beyond Borders, another missions organization. And so these men, like Dr. Nelson, he reads Greek on the daily. Dr. Doug, he's memorized thousands of verses. So it was like getting grilled by some of the most intense, basically theologians in a room together out of love, out of care, and out of respect for the word. And the purpose of the ordination council is to test your doctrine, to test what you believe, to test to see if you have a good grapple, a 2 Timothy 2:15, rightly handling or rightly dividing the word of truth. And so that's what the council is for, to fully confirm what God has been doing in your life. And also, one of the points as well is when we look at what it means to be an elder, an overseer, a pastor, those are the words that are usually used. The word pastor is only used as a noun once. I believe it's in Ephesians 4, but the rest, it's actually a different word of overseer and elder. And it comes from 1 Timothy 3, 1-7. Also says it in Titus 1 as well. But this is what it says. This saying is trustworthy. If anyone aspires to be an overseer, he desires a noble work. An overseer, an elder, therefore must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, self-controlled, sensible, respectable, hospitable, able to teach. By the way, if you notice here, able to teach is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the list. All the lists before has to do with your reputation, has to do with how you manage your household, has to do with your character, whether or not you're above reproach. To put above reproach is basically if people throw mud on the wall, it's not going to stick. You are lived in such a way of character that if even people throw allegations at you, your character will stand above it. Not an excessive drinker, not a bully, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not greedy. He must be managed his own household completely and have his children under control with all dignity. If anyone does know how to manage his own household, how will he take care, or does not, how will he take care of God's church? He must not be a new convert, or he might become conceited and incur the same condemnation as the devil. Furthermore, he must have a good reputation among outsiders, so that he does not fall into disgrace and the devil's trap. So pretty much most of the qualifications for elder, for pastor, are someone who is above reproach, is managing their life well, even beyond their gifting. And I feel like that's the issue right now in the church, is eldership is dictated by gifting. Eldership is an affirmation of God's call in communion with God's character. So if you have gifting without character, you're not an elder. You're just a great speaker. And we need to make that clear. Like, you can be a great teacher and recognize you should not be pastoring a church because you are not living above reproach. You do not have a good reputation among outsiders. And so that's where the ordination council is there before. And it's not just, and also the men that are there are people that have seen you walk through a seasons of life that can confirm that you stayed faithful regardless of what you experienced. So it shouldn't be people like, as much as I get the whole thing of having a denominational ordination, I get all that. But what's more powerful and what we see at the biblical model is being confirmed within your local church and being ordained in that manner. Because these are people that actually have lived with you, walked with you, cried with you, all of that. And before we can get to the pictures regarding, to the picture of the ordination and kind of some miraculous things of how God brought all things together on this date, I want to read this passage in Acts 13, 1 through 8, and I think it's going to give clarity regarding what ordination is. And real quick, if you could leave a like on this video, let YouTube know you like this kind of content. Leave a comment as well. I love reading people's comments. I love to respond to people. And feel free to hit the subscribe button if you want to be a part of this community. Lastly, I am a self-supported missionary, so if God leads you, would you mind supporting me or supporting this channel? I have a link down in the description below, and I also have my newsletter so you can get updates on what I'm doing. Let's get back to the video. It says, "Now there were in the church of Antioch prophets and teachers, Barnabas, Simeon, who is called Niger, Lucius of Cyrene, Manaen, and a lifelong friend of Herod the Tetrarch, and Saul. While they were worshiping the Lord and fasting, the Holy Spirit said, 'Set apart for me Barnabas and Saul for the work for which I have called them.' Then after fasting and praying, they laid their hands on them and sent them off." And so there's a few things that I want to point out here from Acts 1 through 3. First of all, it is God himself who calls men to ministry or women to ministry and qualifies them with the gifts. God is the one who calls, and God is the one who qualifies. He's not going to call someone without giving someone the qualification to fulfill the task. He's not going to call someone to climb a mountain without the tools to be able to climb that mountain. So God calls, and he qualifies those who are walking in that. The second thing is this: the members of the church recognize God's clear leading and embrace it. So these rogue pastors that plant their own church, that have no governing authority above them, have no one that's able to shepherd them and see if they're walking above reproach, that's not good and that's not biblical. We should always have a covering, and that's the purpose of the church. The church is a covering that recognizes that God is clearly leading you into this calling. And that's so important. That's why I love being ordained in a local church. It was people that have actually seen me live life, walk in ministry. Third thing, with prayer and fasting, the church lays hands on Paul and Barnabas to demonstrate their commissioning. And so when you see people being ordained, there is a symbolic laying on of hands. And it's not the laying on of hands in the sense of we're imbuing you with spiritual power, although you can pray for that. It's more of a symbol of the covering, of the sending, of the commissioning for what God has called you to do. And it's a really powerful thing. And the last thing is this: God works through the church as both the church and the Spirit are to send the missionaries. And so the church is partnering with the Holy Spirit, who calls people up for a specific purpose and then sends them out. And we actually see this in 1 Timothy 4:14. It says, "Do not neglect the gift." This is Paul talking to Timothy, his disciple. "The gift you have, which was given you by prophecy when the council of elders laid their hands on you." So this is the moment actually where Timothy received a gift of prophecy as the elders were laying on of hands, commissioning him to, Paul actually tells Timothy to fulfill the call to be an evangelist. So obviously he's going to use prophecy within that context. And lastly, what is the laying on of hands? This is the last point. It's a confirmation through God's church for God's calling in a person's life. And so when you're laying on of hands, it is confirming through the church, through a governing authority, through an elder team, for God's call, and imbuing them with a responsibility. So as an ordained pastor, you can, marry people, all that good stuff. responsibility that only clergy can do. I kind of want to share, before I get into a couple of the pictures, kind of some miracle things that happened and kind of how this date was so special. First of all, this was a month before I turned 30 next month, and I've always, my entire life, felt like 30 was a big year for me. The same thing was when I turned 25, and it was when I turned 25, that's when I surrendered to the Lord. Jesus didn't save me that day. There was a long season of disobedience, but that was the day I said, Jesus, I'll follow you for the rest of my life. So that when I hit 25, Jesus began to transform my life because I was walking in obedience. And I've always thought 30 was a big year. And so the fact that the ordaining council happened to be, and the ordination happened to be on the month before I turned 30 was something special. I turned 30 September 22nd. Also, I came to find out my dad got ordained at 29 years old. Dr. Doug Lay, during the ordination council, shared that actually Levitical priests weren't officially ordained till they were 30 years old. And we know, guess who also got baptized at 30? Jesus. And it was, Jesus said he was there to fulfill all righteousness. So it makes sense as the high priest, the high Levitical priest, that Jesus would wait till he's 30 years old. I'm sure he was ready at 27. I feel like I was ready probably a year and a half ago to receive ordination, but I think it was appropriate for me to wait for that time, and I think God's timing is perfect. But I want to share with you, this is my personal book of blessing, I call it. These are basically the writings that I feel like that God has blessed me and how he has moved in my life. I wrote these, I want to, on the 8th of this month. Usually they're a few days after I start capturing everything. And so the first thing was actually my senior pastor allowing me to preach. So I had preached the month before, which is fine. I don't need to preach. I usually try and preach once a month. But it was the beginning. It was August. Small groups are launching. It's a big Sunday, and he allowed me the opportunity. So for those of you that don't know, my dad has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer about 2.5 years ago, and he's still fighting. We're still believing in the healing power of God. But my dad's actually never seen me preach. I've been preaching for the past 3 years, and he's never seen me preach. And so that I just wanted that to be a special moment, especially during that ordination day. And I might post a sermon on here. I don't usually post my sermons, but I might do that later. So that was definitely a cool thing. The second thing was cool of God's timing. My wife and I, we read the scriptures together, and we were going through the book of Hebrews, and so we had just finished chapter 11, and so when Pastor Paul sent over me the sermon series and his idea, one of the main texts was Hebrews 12, and I was like, this is literally perfect. I know the exact, the entire context of Hebrews 11. I just read through it. It's fresh on my mind, and so God used that to help me write the sermon. Not that I couldn't do the, study it and get the context on my own, but it was just kind of God's timing in the sermon series. I thought it was perfect. The sermon series is also called Made for More, which I thought was awesome. I mean, on a day for ordination, I think that was something special. Not a more perfect sermon series than that. I received a special Bible, which I've had talked about in the past. I did my unboxing. This is a Schuyler Bible. It costs about $220 something. And actually, I was gifted another Bible that I wanna bring out here in a second. This is the Bible that I wasn't given this in my ordination, but this is supposed to be my forever Bible for preaching and teaching. So that happened to come in. Also, it happened to be the Sunday right before I launched my discipleship curriculum. I've been writing this book for the past year and a half, and I'm launching it at my local church this Wednesday, which is exciting. And then apparently 12 years ago was when I got baptized. I was recollecting my story and sharing my testimony with the elder council, and I was remembering my story of being baptized. And I remember that was 12 years ago in August. I got the notification. I was like, how crazy is that 12 years later? And that was the first time I felt called into ministry, was when I was 12 years old. I got baptized. But of course, my stubborn self wanted to go do my own thing. And also, the last thing was this. A year ago, I had started with Crossing Cultures International on August 15th. And so just anything and everything happened to happen in August, which I think was just totally the work of God. And real quick, I just wanted to show you, this was actually the ordination Bible that I was given. My senior pastor joked, he knows I love Bibles. I probably have a little bit, probably too many at this point. But he was trying to figure out what to get me, and for someone that loves Bibles, it was like, well, he has plenty. And so he got me this journaling Bible. I want to put it up to the camera here. Journaling Bible Interleavened Edition ESV. For those of you that don't know, the ESV, I've used that for the past 10 years of ministry. I now use a CSB, but I still study with the ESV all the time. And just to kind of give you, it really is a beautiful, it was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool Bible. Awesome gift. I want to kind of open it for you. So every single page has a space that you can journal, that you can write. So you can see here, there's a blank page next to every single page of the Bible, so you can study and write notes, which is so cool. Like, I absolutely love that. I think that's the coolest thing. And you can say here, presented to Reverend David Narvaez, ordained August 18th, 2024, relevant church, which is super cool. And I think the elders, and I have all the elders' signatures in the back from, Pastor Paul, Dr. Nelson, Dr. Doug, my father, and then Tom Wilson, one of the elders. Super, super special. This one is I almost don't even want to use it because it's so cool. It really was, it was just a unique gift. It really was. And so lastly, I just want to show some of the pictures from the ordination just because why not just do the whole thing? So this is actually when I was preaching. She only took a couple photos. I had someone that was there just for, it's not important. But this was when I got brought on stage at the end of the service. I was tearing up a little bit. This is by far my favorite picture. So these are men that have loved me, shepherded me, mentored me, counseled me, and I can say this with full confidence. I would not be where I am today if not for these men in my life. On the left, that's Senior Pastor Paul. He's the Senior Pastor of Relevant Church. Dr. Douglas Lay, he serves on Serving Beyond Borders in his own ministry. Tom Wilson, he was on the elder board at Relevant. My father, he's the one at that moment with a microphone. And then Dr. David Nelson, who is my mentor, spiritual father, boss, president of Crossing Cultures International. All these men are incredible. It's another picture there as well. Just a really cool moment. Me hugging my dad. Look at my underwear. Don't look at that. It's embarrassing. And this is the picture after. So definitely a special moment I'll never forget. It's kind of crazy. I get emotional because if you knew my childhood, I've never shared my testimony on here of what I've been through, the brokenness that I experienced, the trauma that I experienced, the reconciliation that I experienced. I would not be alive if not for the pure grace of God. One day I'll share my testimony. To see this picture, it's all I can do is just glorify Jesus, because if it was not for him, I would not be here. And I almost forgot to show you guys, this is my ordination council certificate of all the elders that signed it from the church that I was ordained at, or I used to youth pastor at, and that was my sending church to do missions work. So definitely a cool thing to have, just in remembrance of this moment, this day. Definitely special. That's why it's not about you. It's not about David. It's all about Jesus. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.